Hello, and welcome to Deep In Pact, a proud member of the Duff Network, where we dive deep into Wildbow's most shortest work, 5 years on. Coming up next is Elliot Diebold.
And that was Ruben Morehouse.
That's me, and we're back to talk about Judgment 16.3. So we're back in the church, the extended council is now here, and our ambassador Mags just starts introducing people, I guess.
Yeah, and I love how this sort of opens with Rose thinking like, Mags isn't the sort of person you'd send for a diplomatic meeting with the fairy or something, but she's really good at connecting with the more human elements in the room.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see some more on this sort of beat later, but it's like an interesting opening because the way Rose phrased it, she sets herself up as not that.
Yeah, that's interesting. That hadn't clicked for me, but it's very true. She's like, oh, Mags doesn't really connect with me. She more connects with like the down-to-earth human practitioners.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like the charitable read here is just that, Rose is admittedly not a people person. And so the way she's phrasing it could just be her sort of saying, oh yeah, Mags is much better at this than I am. But just the way it was phrased almost made it sound like Rose wasn't interested in being connected with as much as she isn't
Yes.
connecting to people.
Well, I think that is true, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Blake's been helping to fix that though, right?
Well, I don't know. It seems Rose is resisting all his efforts.
Yeah, I'm so like I mean we've just been in Rosa's head for 3 chapters now, right? Like I'm so interested where this is going for the rest of the arc. I can't wait. This is like, where's Blake? What's happened to Blake? This is gonna be great.
Yeah. The bit I'm most interested in from here is Sandra and how she is acting, because we've kind of, I mean, it feels like we've reached the end of her arc in some ways, like we've reached the end of Sandra's story. And I'm curious what it looks like for her next.
Yeah, I had the same thought. Like, where does she go from here? Because, like, as Mags mentioned, she recused herself from leadership of the family, and that was like kind of her whole thing.
Yes.
Like, I think what's interesting about Sandra is like we always said we kind of hated how much we liked her because she represented like a truly awful like sort of path forward.
Yes.
But there was something inherently likable about her, and she was always helpful to people like Mags. So there was always this really nice side to her. And as we move forward, I'm maybe hoping that she's just embraced that a bit more.
Yeah.
But then I'm also concerned she's secretly planning some sort of sneaky power grab. I can't rule that out based on what we've seen of her. So I feel like there's going to be some interesting Sandra stuff slotted into this arc, and I have no idea what it's going to be, but I think I'm going to love it.
Yeah, it's really hard to know what's going on with Sandra now. I don't know. I'm interested to see, I suppose.
I mean, she's obviously a little bit bitter about what Blake did earlier in the night, but you can't blame her.
Yes, earlier in the night. It's good to keep in mind that was earlier in the night, even though for us it was, a few months ago.
Yeah.
She actually says, Mag says something like, oh, she's head of what's left of the Duchamp family, or she represents what's left of the Duchamp family, and she says, not nearly as many as we had before incidents earlier in the night. She glanced at Rose, and Rose felt Blake stir, which is very much Blake's just kind of like, yeah, fuck you, what of it?
I don't know about that, like, because we got that image of Blake late last arc seeing, footage of himself in arc 13 and being like, oh, that's not me. So I don't know. I'd be interested to know if there's some Blake in there that's like, oh, like, I did do an oopsie with all those murders. Like this might be a more awkward stirring.
Interesting. Maybe. I don't know. I feel like Blake is not one to ever critically reevaluate his actions.
I mean, he's expressed guilt before. I think that's one of the feelings about the past he lets himself have is a negative one.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see, I suppose. So we've got the reintroductions of all the Jacob spell practitioners, and of course, next, the folk from Toronto introduce themselves.
Yeah, and I mean, this is pretty hilarious, because almost every single one of them is like, yeah, I'm not very useful. I'm actually kind of shit. Like, even even the elder sister kind of underplays herself a bit.
Yeah.
Like she juggles that as well as she can while still being like, yeah, I'm hot shit because I'm a lord.
It's so arrogant. She says, I am the elder sister, Lord of Toronto. You should know who I am. Like, damn.
Yeah, it's definitely gone to her head a bit. And she obviously she takes the reins a lot
Yes.
in this sort of discussion, which makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. Just the thing I noticed in almost every single Toronto person's entrance was them being like, "I'm this person," and just like right now, I'm not that useful, so you probably don't even want me. Like
Yeah.
they're such fucking cowards. These Toronto people. It drives me up the wall. I think the only slight difference on this was Paige and Isadora's introduction where she just is sort of like, yes, this is Paige and she's a tool for me to use some of my power with.
Yeah.
Which is just like I love how blatant and open that is because I think we
Yep.
all sort of knew that that's what it was, but Isadora doesn't fuck around with innuendo or anything. Like she's just yep, Paige is my familiar so that I can do stuff, I guess.
Yeah. It's quite refreshing to having Isadora back. I had forgotten just how to the point she is.
Yeah, I love Isadora as well because she she was giving Blake and Rose shit like at the end of last arc, I think, or maybe early this arc, and I was sort of like, like Isadora, and then she does stuff like she does in this chapter. Where I'm like, yeah, go Isadora. Like I'd
Yeah, where
forgotten
she's
how.
just like helpful. She's really helpful.
Yeah, but at the same time, she's stubborn. Like she has her idea of how things should work, and when you're deviating from that, she's just like a stubborn pain in the ass. But also when she's on side with you and you're helping to create order, then she's so nice and helpful.
Yeah.
It's fun how consistent she is and how inconsistent my reaction to it is.
I think it's that she likes being helpful when she likes you and when she's on your side, but she will never like active or like openly be like she'll never admit that she's being helpful, you know? She will only ever help in ways where she has plausible deniability for it later.
Yeah, or it makes her look really cool, like when she does the whole
Yeah.
wing thing in a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this is an interesting part because we obviously kind of know all of these people already. And so it serves if it was just kind of straight reintroducing people, it would be a bit dull. But the reaction the real meat of this part of this chapter is Rose's reactions as everybody's being introduced, which, spoiler alert, is basically just her dismissing people for not being useful.
Yeah, and I mean they're doing that to themselves as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of those fun things Walbo tends to do where he's doing two things at once because the reintroductions are great if like you've forgotten some details about who some of these people are, which I think would be like very excusable if you're reading the story normally. And then as you said, like we've never really seen Rose's reaction to half these people.
Yeah.
So there's like enough of a fun new thing that even if you do remember everything, you still get like Rose's reaction. And I mean, not everyone's being reintroduced. The Queen's Man kind of finally makes an appearance, and he's a bit of a letdown.
What a letdown. Yeah, I think Rose's specific expression, and one that I think the audience shares, is, I'd never spent much time thinking about him, and it seems that was warranted.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so excited. I was so excited for him to be really cool, and he's not. And I had secret hopes that, I still have secret hopes that maybe he's underselling himself on purpose. I sort of talked about how, like here in Australia, the monarchy doesn't really have much power except when they want. I'm thinking of like how things with Gough Whitlam sort of ended up. I know that was the Governor General, but that's effectively the Queen's Man.
Yes.
So
bit of Australian history for you all there.
yeah. So, and I was just wondering if it's the same in Canada. Like, is this one of those things where the Queen's Man is kind of nothing except when he wants to flex, he can.
Yeah.
But I think I'm just grasping it. I want the Queen's Man to be cool straws.
Yes. Yes. And I think the kind of rigid power structures and order that monarchy kind of inherently represents is probably not something that plays well with demons in general.
Yeah, that's kind of what the Queen's Man hints at as well.
Yeah.
He says he's going to be pretty useless against demons, which, as you said, pretty fair.
Yeah. So finally, Mags turns to the last group, not allied with any of the previous groups necessarily, which is Rose and her compatriots, which basically just means the Bahames.
Oh, Paige stands up for this bit too, which was nice.
Well, yes, that's a nice show of support.
If stupid, I don't know why she did that. Anyway, Like she's not really a part of the family. She got out. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like I mean, something we sort of skipped on a little bit ago was, um, as Rose was reacting to everyone introducing themselves, one of the things she also reacted to was Mags seemingly like skipping her
Yes.
when they did all the Jacob's Bell powers, and Rose was like, "Oh, what the hell? Like you just don't consider me an ally or anything." And then of course, it turns out Mags was saving her for last, which totally makes sense. And
Well,
even
yeah,
Rose is like,
obviously it
"Oh."
makes sense because Rose is at the center of this whole thing.
Yeah, and even when it happens, Rose is like, "Oh, she saved me for last." That makes sense. And it was just like, again, it's a thing where Rose is just completely sort of detached from Mags's like
Yeah.
like way of dealing with things. Like, and she was just annoyed and paranoid about it, and I wasn't really sure where that was coming from. Like,
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, she's having a bad day, right?
yeah, well, yeah, aren't they all? So yeah,
Yeah. Um, so here's an interesting moment. There's this bit where Rose notices Blake is reacting to something that's going on, and she thinks she could feel his agitation. He wanted to act. She suppressed it. And I don't know. Maybe this is totally innocuous because it is the kind of thing that could just be totally innocuous, but it just feels ominous. The fact that Rose is like, no, don't worry. I'm suppressing your instincts and your emotions. I'm just gonna do my own thing. Like, it just feels. The phrasing of "she suppressed it" as its own sentence just feels very ominous to me.
yeah, I didn't get that read because I viewed it as something like if you have that sort of agitation in yourself at a big moment, you will suppress it, right? So it's kind of like
That's true.
like it's what you would do to your own emotions. So I kind of saw it as her just like sort of doing what you do to your own emotions, but sort of pushing that onto Blake as hey, chill out. I think
Yeah.
one of the things she follows this up with is like Blake was ready, or is it later in the chapter where she's like Blake was ready to act if he needed to, or maybe even if he didn't, which was like
Classic.
yeah, good little roast of Blake, and sort of I think justifies her trying to suppress stuff like this. But yeah, it could be more. I mean, Blake has presumably made himself very tiny, inside Rose with all his donations.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess as I've already said, I just want to get back in Blake's head for a bit and find out what the fuck's going on in there because it's got to be a mess. I,
Yes.
I also have to admit my read on this thing with Blake's agitation was also a bit muddled because I don't think I understand what happened. So the reason Blake gets agitated here in the quote you read out was they start talking about Johanna's and possession and like all this sort of stuff. And I feel like I missed the point of it, even the second time reading through it, because Rose makes particularly a note about like something to do with the barber's shears and like a wholly different type of possession. And she mentions nobody else knew all these pieces, like even Blake and Tiff didn't fully understand.
Yeah.
And I don't get what we were meant to understand from that. Like I don't know if I've sort of made a mountain that's obscuring the actual molehill. And it wasn't meant to be a big reveal, but it felt like the story was telling us something important here, and it's just gone completely over my head.
Yeah. So there's these moments where Rose is talking about Johannes and how Barbie is possessing Johannes, giving him access to Faisal. And also, since he's fully kind of possessing this human, it gives him access to a bunch of things. Like he can more easily bypass, the anti-demonic warding that Alistair knows, for example. I think it's just that we're in a similar position to Rose and to Blake in this story, where we kind of know all these pieces, but it's easy to imagine that, as Rose points out, not a lot of people know every single piece, and putting it all together there is a lot. We've kind of become numb to the immense horror of this situation, I think.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's just the way this is all phrased. I felt like there was meant to be some revelation for someone, and I can't figure out exactly what it was.
Yeah,
yeah,
fair
I
enough.
don't know.
Anyway. Yeah. So Rose's strategy to this is, tell people exactly how bad it is, which is a good strategy because the thought is, well, they will realize they literally have nothing to lose, so they must put everything into it. But it kind of backfires because everyone just kind of gets a bit overwhelmed and depressed by how unwinnable this situation is.
Yeah, it's sort of the delivery of that setup of Rose not having the human connection stuff, because
Yeah.
she basically, she's like, oh, they're all freaking out because they have loved ones to lose, and like, yeah, that's the thing for people and stuff.
Yeah.
It's
I
sort
forgot
sort
to
of
account for that. God damn.
yeah, exactly. My calculations were off. Yeah. And I mean, this reminded me of some of Blake's moments, both in Toronto and Jacob's Bell with like the Young Council. Just the Thorburns' inability to have conversations with people and convince them. They seem to need to convince people to do stuff by forcing their hand.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's just because these situations and these people are so stubborn that that's the only way it can happen, or if Ross just had no convincing people with word skills, so neither of them got any.
I think I mean, I suspect that because of the way they were raised, they're so used to an environment where, like, they're used to being terrified all the time and inducing terror in each other. I think they just don't kind of understand that other people don't react well to having shitty situations thrust on them all the time.
I like that, actually. Yeah, that's a good explanation.
Yeah. So there's this really fun bit as well where Isadora asks a question of Rose. And of course, we had this seeded a bit last chapter, but I had almost completely forgotten that Isadora has a thing about if you answer her questions wrong, she'll kill you. And Rose is going to answer, but then Blake kind of, nudges her and she remembers. And Isadora's like, no, it's fine. Like, we're off the clock, basically. It's so good. It's just such a funny little exchange.
Yeah, you're right. It's a great little like beat that like you sort of, you're like, what? Wait, what's going on then? Oh, yes, right, of course.
Oh
The
yeah,
question
she'll
thing.
just kill you if you answer a question bad.
And I think it also works, like, it's great humor, and it sets up this whole thing where Isadora's like, look, given the situation, I'm gonna chill.
Yeah.
And you're sort of like, okay, good. Like, it would be completely unreasonable of you to start infighting here because people answer questions poorly. So I like that it kind of helps establish that Isadora's going to stop that as well.
Yeah. So Rose is kind of revealing information to everybody at this point and basically reveals what Granny Thorburns' plan was, which is to just kind of undermine the lawyers through bad grandparenting.
I mean, yeah.
To have the family line end, I guess.
Yeah, I quite liked this explanation from Rose because, like, we talked, I think it was the end of Arc 14 when Blake clicked onto this, that the idea was to sort of have the family end. And I didn't quite see how it was meant to work.
Yeah.
And Rose's explanation here, for whatever reason, just sort of made it, all the various steps of it, be like, of course. Like, and now I feel like I understand why Molly was sacrificed first, because she was careful enough that she might have actually been able to achieve something. So, like, Granny Rose got her out of the way, basically, is how I'm seeing it now. So yeah, I don't know. I just like this as something that made a previous reveal click a bit better in my head than it had before.
Yeah, it all clicks together quite nicely. And it's quite horrifying. And I feel like we don't see enough empathy from the rest of the gathered parties here to the fact that Rose has basically just been set up to be a sacrificial pawn, similarly to Blake. Like, that's pretty shitty, I mean, right?
Yeah, but I mean, elder sister kind of points out in a bit she's just done the same thing to all of them. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, hard to feel too sorry for her when she's just spread the pain like that.
It's a fair point. The other interesting part that Rose kind of puts together here is Barbatorum / Faisal are really too chaotic to be allies to the lawyers, right? They're kind of loosely on the same team, but Barbatorum is too much of a chaotic factor. And so it's not kind of, obviously it doesn't solve their problem, but it's a kind of thread that will presumably be pulled at over the course of the rest of this arc / story.
Yeah, you're right. It seems to be set up in this conversation that combating Barbatorum and Faisal here is sort of the key to beating the lawyers. And in fact, like, something that's set up here is that if they beat the lawyers, chances are the whole thing's going to shut down, or at least this branch will. So that's encouraging. And, Barbatorum and Faisal seem like single things that can somehow be beaten, so that's useful. But that seems to be the direction the next combat is going to be headed in, is we need to figure out how to stop those two, and we kind of win if we do that.
So that's the win condition, I suppose.
Seems to be. I mean, easier said than done, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy to talk about doing it, I suppose.
Yeah, well, fighting either one of them an arc ago was already a monumental task, and now they've
Yeah.
kind of got the backing of the lawyers.
Yep. So Rose finishes her, dumping her exposition all over everybody. And everyone's just kind of a bit stunned by it, and also realizes that it, if they speak out against Rose or speak out in favor, the momentum of the scene feels like they're just going to be argued against. And so they're going to lose whatever position is put forward. So nobody really wants to talk. And Rose's momentum slowly starts to slip away until one heroic, brave goblin changes everything.
Penis.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
It's so good.
It's such a funny moment.
Yeah.
I laughed out loud when, because like the way it's written, you get so tense and you're just like, God, what's going to happen? Like, I was waiting. I could have heard a penny drop in that church, and then instead of a penny, I got a giant penis from a goblin.
Yeah, which is better, I think.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's really good. And it's just such a great summation of this world and the roles that goblins play. Like, this world is so fucked up. Demons are eating everything slowly, and humanity is trying to kind of stem the bleeding, and goblins are just over there being fuckwits.
Yeah. I saw like a comment from Wildbow on this about like how useful it is to have goblins in this kind of setting. And like, characters like this. Like, I kind of feel like Imp takes the same role in Parahumans.
Yeah, interesting.
As just someone or something that can just like break social rules and kind of, like end stalemates like this. Like when something's going on, then like, Imp will just come in and say something completely inappropriate, and it diverts the tension in a way. And I mean, it works. It's very funny.
Yeah, definitely. It's great. It's such a good moment. And it breaks the tension. It breaks the silence, and so other people can start talking. And Elder Sister starts talking and basically says, "Hey Rose, even if you're telling the truth as you know it, like, you're clearly a product of demons. Anything we do with you is just kind of playing into one demon or another's plan. Fuck it, let's just wash our hands of it and get out of here."
Oh man, this is basically Elder Sister just making the thesis statement of the whole Toronto part of the story, which is just, let's just leave it alone because fighting it makes it get worse. And it's like, no, leaving it to fucking stew and constantly get little bits is what's making it worse. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like, I feel like we're especially justified in thinking that this mentality is wrong because had a bunch of babies at the end of Arc 7.
Yep.
Although admittedly those babies came from his conflict with Blake, so I don't know, maybe there's an argument to be made, but it's kind of like, the whole point is if they beat the lawyers, even if there's more damage in the short term, then the lawyers are gone. Like long term, it's a thing, but like these people are just kind of like, it's better to just keep it contained and slowly lose more and more. And it's just like, it's a bit aggravating because it's so exactly the opposite of everything Blake has been about for the whole story.
Yeah, it does feel like a great summation of course, this is the final argument that needs to be had. It's the argument of just let things go and they'll be fine. We can kind of deal with the fallout, but we don't have to deal with the root cause, which of course is wrong. Of course it's wrong. This whole book has been about how that's wrong.
Exactly.
Evan has a very strong reaction to this because Elder Sister basically says, "Yeah, I was passive enough that you got killed." So of course, fair enough. Not just that, the whole argument is basically the antithesis of everything that Blake and Evan stand for.
Yeah, like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, Evan doesn't really get a chance to say his piece, which I was bummed out about. Because he's kind of an example of everything that's wrong with that system. Like, he's one of the victims that are kind of drip fed to these things to keep them appeased and not as active as they otherwise would be.
Yep.
I think his opening response of that is a bad answer is so perfect because it's just like it sounds like something a 7-year-old would say, but is completely spot on.
I mean, he gets right to the cut of it, doesn't he?
Yeah, like I was bummed that we didn't get to hear the rest of his speech kind of grilling the older sister.
We don't get to hear the rest of his speech because Max just pulls out a fucking shotgun and shoots it into the air. Like, Max, that's a bit over the top. Just get a gavel.
Yeah, well, it's that, you spend enough time with goblins.
Yeah.
Um, it's the same pipe thing that
Yes.
she used in Signature, right? Like the thing
Yes.
she used to catch Buttsack.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
gift from Andy, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Good
Fun times.
times. Yeah. So elder sister kind of says her piece, and Rose basically realizes that she and elder sister, both of their plans start in the same way, right? They both want
Yeah,
Mrs. Lewis to come into the church, and Mrs. Lewis is going to make an offer to let the people from Toronto leave free of harm if this all gets kind of resolved. But of course, Rose wants everyone to say no, and elder sister wants to say yes.
yeah, and so like, I guess Rosa's plan here is to have Miss Lewis come in so that they can all say, "Nah, fuck off, we're gonna fight you," um, which will achieve making Miss Lewis upset.
Mm.
Or like, I don't know, some of the logic here escaped me again, where I was like, I don't quite understand why Rose wants this so bad. Is it the theatrics of having everyone make a stand against the lawyers? Because I mean, it's cool like that, and that's what I'm here for, and I guess the spirits might be too.
Yeah, my vibe on it is that the real thing that will kill them is indecision and like being half in and half out. And that's kind of what
Yeah.
Rose talks about a bit later as well, is if you're in, you're in. And so they want to make sure that people explicitly say no to Mrs. Lewis's offer. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, well, so like as you said, there's sort of two concessions that
yeah,
Rose asks for if they're going to do this.
yeah,
We'll get to the second one in a bit because that's a whole can of worms.
yeah,
Um, but the first one is also interesting because her first concession that she asked for is basically everyone needs to be in on this. Like if everyone can't get out that wants to, then none of you can leave.
yeah,
And like I love it because first of all, you're such a hypocrite, Rose. I remember the visions we had in like 9.6 where you fucked up the Jacob's Bell rules by
yeah.
not letting
By
them
not
be
playing
unanimous.
ball, yeah,
Um, but like then the other part of that concession is the elder sister isn't allowed to put pressure on people to make that decision, and it felt and it gets called out as like a direct callback to the conquest contest
yeah,
from earlier in the story, like the way that like that was one of the rules Blake set up very early in
yeah.
that. So like I don't know if it means anything, but it just felt like a neat little like coming full circle moment.
Yeah, I'm surprised Elder Sister agrees to this because basically Rose's concessions are in order to level the playing field. Because Elder Sister, if Mrs. Lewis had come in without these concessions, Elder Sister would have gotten her way 100%. Like, there's no chance this would have gone the way Rose wants. And so Elder Sister just kind of agrees to these concessions because she thinks she can still win. Which is obviously, I mean, that's the same flaw that Conquest made, right?
Yeah, exactly. The old Thorburn strategy of being too weak to be considered a threat.
Yes. And we don't see how it plays out, but we will.
Oh yeah, I imagine that's just going to be all of next chapter. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, so
Should we talk about the second concession is Rose basically tells people more about demons and humans and angels and how those three things interrelate.
yeah, and this bit's probably just going to go on for a while, so we're calling it our bonus bit
Yep.
tonight as well, because like this was like one of those mind explosion moments for me. Like I read this and it was like, oh, how did I not see this? The book has been basically jamming all the individual parts of it down my throat for
Yeah.
like arcs and arcs, and then you sort of see it all tied together, and I was like, oh my god, that's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, it is good, isn't it? So do you want to well, why don't you summarize it for us, Elliot?
Yeah, well, so basically, Rose Senior has come up with the theory that Rose Junior is now telling us that humans kind of exist as a third major force. Like we obviously have the angels
Yep.
that create and the demons that destroy, and humans have become sort of such an embodiment of change that we're sort of rising, or we have risen to becoming the third tier that's almost an equal force. And like part of the proof of that is how like our change has influenced the angels and the demons, which
Yeah.
again is that's one of many little details in this speech that I was like, oh fuck, like of course it was right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it? I think the thing that I like the most about this is it raises the question of the abyss in such an interesting way, because
Yes.
it means that the abyss is this intensely human place, right? Like it is a
Yeah.
place that is defined by changing things, and it makes so much sense as, you know, as humanity has come and humans' kind of folklore and thoughts have arrived in this world. The abyss has been built up as this place that's kind of the pure manifestation of human change energy.
Yeah, like that was exactly the thought I had is the abyss maybe didn't well, I see the abyss as the underlayer of reality, I
Yeah.
suppose. Like you know, is where you fall through the cracks of reality, you end up in the abyss. So there's a chance it was just representative of destruction and loss. Like maybe there wasn't an abyss and things just got destroyed when the demons
Well,
were top dogs. And I think maybe what's happened is as humans have grown more powerful and taken a stronger hold on reality, what's happened is the base layer of reality has come to represent what humans represent, which is change.
yeah.
So maybe in the past the abyss operated very differently, but now it kind of operates based on the feedback it's getting from above it in reality.
Yeah. I kind of think of it as the third place, you know, like obviously we haven't had any discussion of like heaven or hell in these stories, but obviously the Christian, at least, idea of angels and demons ties quite closely into those. And so angels
Yeah.
as a creative force leads to me to think heaven, okay, that's a place where things get created, right? Um,
Hmm.
Demons as a destructive force, hell is a place where things get destroyed. And as humans have entered the scene, there has become this kind of associated third place that is just the place where things go when they need to change.
Yeah, when they need to be recycled.
Yes,
Yeah.
which I absolutely love as just like, and it leads so nicely into, we've had so many conversations about, you know, about the abyss and about how, well, yeah, actually it's horrible in a lot of ways, but also there's these really interesting communities and there's lots of really good people there and lots of really interesting things that remind me of the idea of like humanity is so broad. Like humans do
Mm.
some obviously evil shit, but also do some really nice shit. And that's kind of what the abyss is to me. It's, we see it through the lens of doing bad shit a lot, but also there's just a lot of good stuff in there because it's this very human place.
Well, yeah, and like I think either way, the abyss kind of takes its form and gets its ideas from whatever is falling through the cracks.
Yes.
And it just so happens that the world of Pact is a piece of shit, so most of the stuff falling through is awful. So that like the
Yes.
abyss is just kind of taken after what it was given.
Yes, I
Um,
suppose the Abyss more takes after practitioners than humans specifically.
yeah, probably. And like, you know, I think we've seen some others and some shitty gods down
Yeah.
there. Um, so yeah, either way. I don't know. I guess I don't know enough about the afterlife to know if I think the abyss should be held on the same account, but I kind of like both our theories. So
Yeah, sure.
either way.
Yeah.
Um, I yeah, I mean, I guess so. To go back to the main sort of reveal that, you know, humans are this sort of third force. I I just love it because we talked so much about how humans did seem to have a special place in this universe, and part of
Yeah.
that was that there was no side for humans, like, you
Yeah.
know, that they can be good or evil, and it's like because. Yeah, they are. We are the third option. I mean, it's great because it ties into Blake and Rose's whole
Yes,
thing a little bit.
totally.
Um, yeah, like just again, it's just one of those reveals where I see everything clicking into place, like all the stuff with like what Solomon did when he created the Seal of Solomon. That would have been one of the first big major changes.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe not one of the first, but that would have been one of the big major changes. And I think that that's great because Solomon kind of, and we used to talk about this a lot. He serves as the evidence that humans can
Yes.
change the order of things. Like the Seal of Solomon has changed things for angels and demons as much as everything else.
Yeah.
So there is precedent for this stuff to be flexible. And I think what's fun is everyone constantly talks about how these systems, you know, they're reinforced over time and they get harder and harder to change. But like, if humanity's thing is change, then like fight it, you know. And I guess that's what Blake and Rose have kind of always been about. Is this sort of like, nah, fuck it, like we can do better.
Yeah. I think the problem with that it comes up is the more humans there are, the more that by default things will be reinforced to stay the same. So therefore, the more of a kind of, the more momentum you need to make something change.
Yeah, you're right. Because it's like, I guess I kind of view it as on a like if we're talking about the spirits as this underlying, you know,
Yeah,
kind of impact. They're kind of the equivalent of the I don't know symbolic atoms of the universe. I see demons as things that destroy and corrupt spirits, angels as things that create and empower spirits, and then humans as things that will just like alter spirits.
yeah,
And you're right, like it's kind of I think if you can lead all the humans to think one thing, and then they're going to affect all the spirits to do it,
yeah,
then like you're right, like you sort of got to move the people. And I mean, I guess that's what Rose is trying to do here is we've kind of got all the powerful people gathered in Jacob's Bell, and now she wants to change their minds, and hopefully if she changes all of their minds that will have an effect on the spirits.
yeah.
Fingers crossed.
We'll have to see, I suppose. Yeah, because the next thing that happens is they let in Mrs. Lewis, and she offers an out, and there's silence. So who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, the next chapter's going to be very fun. Like, who's going to step up?
Yeah. Will
Who's
people
gonna
take it?
not?
Will
Yeah.
people not take it? Will a goblin just yell out penis again? I can't wait to find out.
Yeah, I can't wait to see. I feel like some people are going to be on either side of this, and it's going to be a really fun debate with Miss Lewis being
Yeah.
a pain in the ass in the middle and probably adding restrictions to cause things to be harder.
Yeah,
Um,
well, yeah, I'm sure.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what happens next time in Judgment 16.4, because that's the end of our episode for today. Thank you for
Yeah.
joining us, folks. If
I
you
mean, I have more to say on the Rose thing.
Oh yeah,
If
let's
we
hear it.
wanna
What else
do
you got?
more. The whole becoming a practitioner as being this trade off between being human and being other.
Mm,
I find that really interesting. I still haven't, that hasn't quite clicked into place for me, but
mm,
I feel like that's saying something about this whole thing because at the same time it lets you make more change, but it makes you less human. And in some ways, like we see a lot of the more othery things, like when Blake was very abyssal, he was almost less change driven. He was trying to reinforce. Actually, no, I don't know. I don't know.
well,
I'm curious if you have any thoughts on.
yeah. I mean, yeah, we're getting close enough to the end that there aren't that many big reveals around this stuff left, so I can
No.
give you my full unbridled speculations about this. My
Yeah.
thoughts on it are we've got humans, angels, demons, right? And those are the three major things, but others don't
Sure.
really fit into that specifically. I mean, some do, obviously. Some of them are angels or demons, and some are quite close to that, you know. Boogeymen maybe are halfway between demons and humans, right? But I do think there is something else. I do think there are, like, dotted around this kind of three-dimensional, you know, graph, there are other points that are others. Or maybe it's even not three-dimensional. Maybe there is another dimension that's like, I don't know, fucking ghosts or whatever. Something that doesn't quite fit as a place between humans, angels, and demons. And I think that's where practitioners end up. Depending on their specialization, they move away from human, but not necessarily towards angel or demon, towards some other axis.
Well, it could just be them moving towards the stuff, right? Like that was a terrible sentence.
Yeah, sure.
It's like, okay, so you've got angels who create, demons who destroy, humans who change. But what are they changing? Well, they're just changing the universe.
Yes.
And you're sort of giving up your humanity to simultaneously be more a part of that universe, which I guess gives you boons and stuff, but you also give up part of your humanity. Yeah, I don't know. Like I wanna sit on this more. I feel like there's something here, but I'm just not quite getting it.
Fair enough.
I also love how all this stuff fits into these societal metaphors we've all sort of talked about. Like I think this is the story. Like if we talk about, the capitalism or whatever metaphors of the practice.
Yeah.
Oh, like this is the story kind of calling people to arms and to fight for change.
It's hopeful, right? That's what I like about it. It is a message that's talking about, hey, yeah, there's a lot of really powerful forces in this world, but humanity is one of those powerful forces, right? Like the fact that we can significantly affect our planet and make it shittier also implies that we can significantly affect it to make it better.
Yeah, and I mean, this is what I loved so much about this reveal was because I'd sort of been waiting for this, like with the societal metaphor in mind for so much of the story. I was kind of waiting for what the story said to map to that, and I didn't think Wildbow was the sort of person to just have the message of his story be like, "Yeah, it's shit, don't bother."
Yeah.
So I was sort of waiting to see how hope of some sort would be injected, and like this is it, and it's so perfect.
This is the thing about Wildbow stories that I find really interesting, right? Because in a lot of, I'm going to call it science fiction, even though I know that doesn't really apply to Pact, and neither does it apply to Worm really, but it does in some ways. So let's just use that label, right?
Sure.
In a lot of science fiction, there something that I really hate in it is like things being human centric, right? Treating humans as, hey, we're this really special thing. And
Yeah.
I say that, but I love these bits. I love the way that Wildberg gets to that in his stories, because it's never just humans are special because we're the default, you know? It's
Yeah.
always there's this uniqueness about sentience that we possess. And I'm sure if Pact was set on fucking Grabnar 5, the planet out in the solar system, we'd be having a conversation about how actually Grabnoxians are the ones who possess this special power. But it's just kind of intrinsic that as a sentient force, we have this ability to change. And it leads back to this trope that I actually usually hate, but just always seems to work for me in Wildbow stories. I love it.
Yeah, like I think we've touched on this before, this idea that there are a lot of stories in fantasy and you're right, in sci-fi that put a special emphasis on the importance of humanity, and
Yeah.
it's not always done well. Like sometimes it just kind of feels like a lazy superiority complex where
Yes,
they're like,
exactly. Or similar to
uh,
something like a prophecy, where it's kind of like, well, that just makes it boring, you know?
yeah, like sometimes it just kind of feels like, yeah, humanity is just the good flexible thing because that's what it is in lots of other stories. And
Yeah.
you're right. Like I think why it works in here so well is because Wildbow's kind of earned it.
Yeah.
It's been built up to and makes sense with the rest of the universe around it.
Yeah.
It's
Totally.
not just oh well yeah sure elves are immortal but like humans we die so that makes us cool in our own way.
Yeah, it's who wants to be the fucking Mario, you know, when you can pick four characters, who wants to be the human instead of the orc or the, you know, elf? But
Yeah, exactly.
no, you're right. It's always, he always comes to it in an interesting kind of path, which makes it great, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, anything else? I guess we just ramble on until you want to wrap up.
I don't know. I don't have anything meaningful here to say, but I just want to call out the Angels for being shit and failing to adapt.
Oh my god, fucking hell, Faisal, such a waste. Am I right? What a waste of space.
Like it's this whole thing where like somehow the Angels managed to get a resurgence in the battle for the universe, according to like the Rose Senior theory. They managed to seed life. This life has turned into something that is helping to change. And instead of like working with it to fight the demons, they just started fighting it because they're like,
Yeah.
no, that's not how we want things to be. Like,
Oh my god. Yep.
idiots.
I'm so
Idiots,
with
a lot
you.
of
I'm
them.
so with you. Can you imagine how much change could have been made in Jacob's Bell if Faisal was like on side? Fuck, man.
Yeah, like 100%.
Anyway. That's the end of our discussion on Judgment 16.3. Thanks for joining us, folks. If you want to leave your thoughts on just what the coolest part about humanity is, you can do that in our discussion thread, or leave us your answer to our discussion question, which is, in what kind of situations is it okay to use a demon? We're still seeing a lot of answers that are very never ever kind of. I've seen one or two that aren't.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are maybe treating this more academically than I sort of pictured it. Like because like yes, you're all right. Academically, you always end up in a worse situation in the long term when you use a demon. Like the story's made that very clear.
Yep.
But humans are dumb shits. Like we were just ragging on the angels. We're not that much better.
Yeah, we're shit.
Like, there's going to be situations where I think you're going to take the short term gains for the long-term losses, or maybe I'm just worse than all of our listeners.
Maybe we should ask, when would you use a demon? Not when is it okay to. When would you? You know yourself. Come on, there must be a situation.
Yeah, like I guess in what sort of situation do you think you would make that bad long-term play for a good short-term gain? Because I could see myself being dumb enough to do it in certain situations.
Oh, yeah, me too. Unfortunately, I know I would. I'd be stupid about it.
I mean, it's the whole premise of Diabolus, really.
Yeah,
That's the whole
exactly.
thing.
Yep, is the shortcut route, you know. So leave us your thoughts on that in our discussion thread, which will be linked down below. Or hey, while you're leaving us stuff, why don't you leave us a review on your podcatcher of choice?
Yep, those reviews go into the algorithm, and more people finding the podcast is what comes out. So
yep, who knows what goes on in between, but not us,
yeah,
I guess.
It's a bit of a black box.
Yep.
And while you're doing the rounds on the internet, helping Deep Impact out, you could also head over to our Twitter, give us a follow. I think that helps probably.
Yep.
It's where my live reads are too, if you're interested in that. I'm assuming as we get to the end, there's going to be some oh shit moments, so I can't wait to just type out tweets that are just oh shit, or however many times that fits into 280 characters.
Yeah. Who knows? Nobody can do that math. It's too difficult. I think it's 20. No, that can't be right. 40. I think it's 40. It's 40.
Okay.
Because oh shit is 7 characters, times 4 is 28 characters, times 10, 280. Boom. But I think aren't tweets 560 now? Didn't tweets get bigger? Talk about humanity's capacity for change. Who would have ever thought tweets could get more than 280 characters?
That can't be that many, because I'm always running out of characters in my live reads. Like, there are surely people who read them must think like I have the worst sentence grammar, and it's like that is true, but also it's made worse because like I sometimes just have to delete a word to fit it into 280 characters.
Yeah, you just type oh shit too many times, I guess. While you're checking out our Twitter, why not check out our website as well, doofmedia.com, the home of all the great shows on the Doof Media Network, and there are a lot of them.
Yeah, Kingslingers, we've talked about it a bunch. It's really taking off. I'm very excited to dive into the new episode.
Yeah, Sling That King.
Quite yet. And there's also a book club tomorrow.
Yes.
Which is on Children of Time, which is like I haven't quite finished the book, so I'm gonna miss the book club live, unfortunately. But yeah, like, you know, and obviously if you're a patron of doofmedia.com, patreon.com/doofmedia.
Yep.
You get to help vote in which books are in the book club. So you can, you know, try and get whichever books you like covered in the book club.
Yeah. If you want to get access to that patron vote and all kinds of other great perks, again, go to patreon.com/doofmedia. There's all kinds of cool things you get for backing us at various levels. If you back us at $1, you get access to the Discord, which is the best, which was recently described by a Discord user as the nicest and most wholesome community on the entire internet. So be a part of it. Unless you're bad, then don't do
it. No, we'll fix them.
We'll turn you around.
And speaking of patrons, you should be a patron of Wildbow.
Heck yeah.
Patreon.com/Wildbow. I mean, if you're not reading Ward now, you should go do that. It's real good. And
yeah, man.
It's the patrons that are making Ward happen.
Yeah, so thanks.
I mean, Wildbow too, but the patrons...
No. I think it's just the patrons. Thanks, patrons. Yes, and thank you for joining us. Our next episode, as we said, is Judgment 16.4. That's coming out on Monday, the 3rd of February. So we will see you then.
See ya.